Joy. She said, I have a faint response to trauma. I push all my emotions down and get hyper-focused. I can just block everything out and just move forward. Where trauma breaks everybody down, it builds me up.
Welcome to another episode of the Urban Echoes podcast. I am your host, Edward Andrews, and today I'm featuring my man, Norman Gaines, the author of Beyond Survival and the founder of the Impact Horizon. Please, could you tell me who you are, Norman, Mr. Norman?
So, Norman Gaines from New York, born and raised, Spanish Harlem, big up to Spanish Harlem. So, at one point, I was one of 5 juveniles in the state of Connecticut who was sentenced to life without the possibility of release. I spent over 25 years in prison. I'm trying to fight this case. I ended up getting it overturned. And like I tell people nowadays, when everyone asks me about the time I spent, which we'll get into probably in a little bit, I always say I spent 9,000 days. I say it in years. I say it in days instead of years because it paints a different picture. So I've learned a lot in prison. Try to stay positive, had good background, good family, good mentors, and I'm out here.
It's good to know, man. With this podcast, what we do in this podcast, we try to be very informative and show that it's not about converting. It's about how we learn from our past and just trying to be a better person, not for no pat on our back, but just to show our growth, our maturity, and all of that. We don't try to idolize our past. We try to help our community with our past, So tell me, you were sentenced to how long?
I was sentenced to life without the possibility of release.
At the age?
Of 17.
Of 17. So they already know that at the age of 17, the brain does not function as an adult. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're correct.
And how did you didn't know that at the time, but how did you feel about at the time?
So to give a brief history, so I got arrested when I was 18 for a crime they said I committed when I was 17. The evidence was never there. Obviously, a case overturned, so a lot of good things have happened. My young mind couldn't process really what was going on. I'm in front of a court, in New York, circumstantial evidence doesn't convict you of a life sentence, of a case that has a life sentence. You need more. Especially when you look at the way my case went specifically with all the deals and, not to get too crazy with it, because I don't want to get off topic. The way the deals went with giving people who were suspects offers to go home in exchange of, just putting somebody down. I couldn't process the way, I couldn't process life without parole, right? They're telling me I'm going to die in prison.
Who was they?
So the state of, when I got sentenced, I'm looking at the court and the judge, and at the time, I understand, I know what the charges are, but you don't understand the weight of it. You don't understand that, you're going to lose people. Like I lost my mom's 4 years into the bed. I lost her a little bit after the anniversary of 9/11. Then I lost my grandmother the year I came home. So she waited 26 years to fight to stay alive. She was 100 years old. And in the year I'm about to come home, she passes before I come out. So, you don't process all of these things in the beginning. I just couldn't, I couldn't make of it. I couldn't make sense of it. How did I get into the situation? How did I lose my life so early? And you never coming home again at that age is just, it doesn't feel real.
Especially at that age.
Yeah.
And all that time, we didn't, I'm just saying you may not know that when hardship comes, there's ease, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not way behind here, but right about here,
Mm-hmm.
right on the side of it,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing that when you have sabr, patience, and the way you respond to it, not react, I think that you'll learn the lessons that was in it from the decisions that we made. Are you like? I'm just saying this to him because I know him for many years. We serve a lot of time. We broke a lot of bread. We walked down a child hall. We walked behind the yellow line together, waiting for this type of day to happen. And when I say the day to happen, our freedom. And we both here right now. We call it success because we're not incarcerated after the 3rd years that we was out here. So I just want to put that out there because we beat the statistics. And we're a product of second chances. And we are proof that second chances create leaders, not statistics. And with that being said, so your mom's passed while you was incarcerated. Then you said your grandmom's passed. And grandmom's is just the second thing to our moms.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that around a bunch of men that you had to closely force yourself to accept around you?
All right, so that comes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, because it comes before prison. So I got to give a big shout out to Joy, right? Joy was one of the therapists that I call him Boo, right? Edward Andrews, right? So with Boo, he has a program called the Second Chance Reentry Initiative Program. Script. And like he said, we've known each other for a long time. He saw me grow up in the prison system. I was fresh with a life sentence when I met him. He was one of the mentors that helped keep me grounded. And it's, I give a lot of credit to him and a lot of guys like Brother Muhammad, whose name is Arthur Davis, a man who spent over 60, he's going on 70 years in prison now.
1966.
Yeah.
He was incarcerated.
And he was one of our greatest mentors. And you always got that guy when you see in the prison movies, that old wise prisoner.
Yeah.
That's our real life
mentor
who mentored a lot of us. So
and brought about healing.
And the reason I give a big shout out to Joy, so in the Second Chance Reentry Initiative Program script, before I got connected with them, he wanted me to do the program, wanted me to see what it was all about. And to do that, you have to go through group therapy and individual therapy. And then initially, in my first session with Joy, she said, I have a faint response to trauma. It's called FAWN.
Explain that.
So there's 4 types of trauma.
No. Yeah.
Fight, flight, freeze, and then there's FAWN. It's hardly talked about. It's called the faint response. Now, there's a couple of different ways you have a faint response. One way is when somebody gets so overwhelmed, they just pass out, right? The other way is what she says I suffer from. I push all my emotions down and get hyper-focused. Like I can just block everything out and just move forward. So when my mother passed, right, and matter of fact, when my mom passed, even with the stuff on the streets that was going on.
Was you allowed to go to the funeral?
No, because it was in New York. So I didn't even get to see that. Every traumatic event that I've ever went through since I was a little boy, which is what people used to exploit in the streets, because they were like, how could he be so focused when all this chaos is going on around him? Was that I'm able to just push it down and keep moving forward. So I can concentrate where other people will go crazy. Where trauma breaks everybody down, it builds me up but keeps me emotionally disconnected from the scenario. So initially I cried, like when it happened. I was with my cellmate, Sean Burke. He was like a big brother to me. To this day, he's like a big brother to me. And it was a Sunday. I'm never gonna forget it. The unit manager called me to his office, and I knew she was sick. Right, I got a letter, during the eve of like I said, she died a little bit after the anniversary of 9/11, and then he called me to his office. And initially, I felt the weight, and he's looking at me. He's like, "You don't know if it's that." I said, "I know it is." I said, "Why would they call us to the captain's office?" For those of you who don't know, unit managers, captains, and higher, people who are higher up in the facility,
they don't work on the weekends
at all. So to call me on a Sunday, especially during count time, was odd. And as soon as I walked into his office and saw the number, and I saw some letters on there, I knew what it was. And then he said, "I'm sorry, he said, "I'm sorry, Gaines," and I broke down crying, I can't handle it. But then initially, right after that, he wanted me to talk to somebody. I was like, I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't want to talk to anybody. He had me call my sister. I tried to hang up with her. I didn't want to talk to anybody. Before the night was over, I didn't even tell the Muslim brothers, nobody. I didn't tell anybody. Like all my mentors, nobody. I kept it to myself. But everybody could see that I wasn't me. I was like in a daze. And then I just stopped. Everything became numb. And then I told myself, nope, I got to get out of here. That was the last time I've ever cried for my mother.
So that's part of the psychology of trauma that was a challenge to you, evidently, that you survived from. I know that you was one out of many of these guys out here in Connecticut who've been sentenced to life without the possibility of parole or freedom at that age. Well, tell me about these little guys, these younger guys who's coming up now, who might be facing the same thing with the psychological or what they might be going through. Like, what have you survived and what have you learned that maybe you could share with the audience, or maybe something that they could adopt to go through, to make it be easier for what they're going through? Because a lot of us, like, we get disconnected when we going through things. We don't like to tell. The hypermasculinity, that's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
What's hypermasculinity? Hypermasculinity is when you play this tough guy role because you're trying to play this aspect, whereas in your community, this is, if we don't play it, then guys can look down on us and take advantage of us. Yeah. But hypermasculinity is putting a mask on your own self for you not even being yourself. Mm-hmm. You're robbing your own self for who you are. How do you deal with that?
So the thing that I speak to the youth today, there's one thing that protects youth and there's one thing that curses youth, and that's ignorance. Right? Remember I told you I couldn't understand it, I couldn't grasp it. But that was also my defense mechanism. I didn't feel the weight because I didn't understand the weight in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So youth, a lot of us when we were young, I didn't feel invincible, but I didn't think death was right around the corner. Mm-hmm. You always believe, like a lot of the kids nowadays, they talk about death all the time, just like I did back in the days. It's gonna be what it is, right? It's gonna be whatever. I don't care, and all these different phrases that you hear echoing today. But even though I said I didn't care, and even though I knew I was living a dangerous life, mm-hmm. I didn't believe I was going to die tomorrow. I knew I could, but I didn't believe I would. So that part of it was one of the coping mechanisms that helped me deal with that. The other thing, which was the most important thing, was when guys like you and Muhammad wouldn't allow me to go into that darkness. Right? You guys saw something in me. So a lot of the times we leave the youth alone, right? And that's the problem. And this is why they're upset, right? The kids know what's being done to them, and they know who did it. And this is why they're angry, because they felt since they were younger, since they were little boys and little girls, that somebody left them for dead to be hurt, right? For boys, you allow them to get beat up, right? And for the girls, a lot of times you allow them to be molested, or, you allow them to be sick. You allow them to be, hungry, right? So we
Lost.
don't, I'm specifically for me, you guys didn't allow me to feel that, right? Because you guys showed me that, at one time, people were exploiting me to be that next guy, right? I'm controlling men as children. As a child, right? They had me managing blocks as a child because I could read and write at a high level. I wasn't emotional like everybody else. And then when things happen, I get super vigilant.
So when we talk about a hyper masculinity, automatically you're gonna hide your emotions regardless.
Mm-hmm. But I didn't have to play the part. See, for me, hyper masculinity was different for me. So everybody else was like angry, right? They got to be like, yo, a tough guy. I wasn't that guy. I was just numb. So
gotta yell to get their point across.
Yeah. So with me, I just remained quiet. So then I didn't know at the time that silence spoke louder than the loudest person.
Mm.
And that's what, gravitated me towards what gravitated a lot of older people to me. Because everybody was like, he's different. And I used to argue all the time, I'm not different. Why don't you talk to them? Why don't you bring them up, right? Because you're different. You got the capability of doing other things that other people can't do. And you're going to be the one who's going to help them. And I'm like, why y'all putting this on me? I'm not different. I'm just like everybody else.
How did you come to that conclusion that you was a little unique?
When he asked me a simple question, right?
Yeah.
Right? They say, if you're like everybody else, how come you're not doing what they're doing? How come you're not out? How come you're not at rec playing cards and wasting your time? How come you're not over there using drugs? How come you're not gambling? How come you're not doing all these little different things? Why you not in the mess all the time? Why are you reading these books? Why is it that you like other things? Why are you so quiet? Why you stay to yourself? I was like, I still quiet. I'm just listening. And I'm like, you're right, because I'm different. Sometimes, while I can't see it myself, other people see things in you and you got to find a way to bring it out of the kid. Just like when you guys brought it out to me, and the other brothers brought it out for me. Because just like any other youth, I was stubborn as all can be. But sometimes, you keep nailing that wall, right? You keep chipping at that rock. Sooner or later, it crumble.
I don't know. Me, I look at it different. I don't think that it don't have to be with the kids, because you got grown, adults who never address some of their trauma, but at the same time, they conduct themselves as children, as a child.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that our population, once you're in that social determinant or that redlining, I think that we deal with a lot of challenges different that leads us into prison, lead us to be fatherless, or not to be a father to our responsibilities to our child. And then you have society think that we bad fathers.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that we're bad fathers. It's just that I believe that we dealt with the hands the best way that we can. With our coping skills. Our coping skill needed more improvement.
Mm-hmm.
They said progress more than perfection. Long we could come to that self-awareness that we know what needs to be. A man is he who know what has to be done and does it and do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so when they be saying that we not no good as fathers. Let's go to the history of the black man. Let's go to the history that during slavery time, how we were separated from, how our ancestors were separated from the mothers.
Mm-hmm.
Here go the mothers seeing the husband being hung. Here go the mothers seeing that the husband being separated from them, taken on a boat and going long distance. How do we respond after that?
But it's the same thing. It's the same process. When I first got locked up, and I was in the bullpen, I've never told it to anybody, right? And I'm only written it down, and one of these days I'll probably bring it out, right?
Okay.
I saw something weird, right?
What, like homo stuff going on?
Nah.
What?
So I'm looking at the prison, right? I'm looking at the process, and like I said, I was a different kid. I didn't, you're different, but like I said, later on, you really know that you're different. So everybody's just focused on prison, right? It's regular day to everybody else. You got people who are in jail. You put chains on them. You bring them upstairs to court. You bring them downstairs. You throw the food on the floor. You feed them, right? You put chains back on them. You bring them back to the prison. You strip them, and then you put them back in the cell. That's a normal day to everybody. When I'm looking at this whole thing for the first time, and I said I was a street kid, right? I was a good kid who ended up being a street kid, but I never lost my book smarts, my academic smarts. I'm analyzing this whole situation. And I'm saying, this isn't normal. I'm looking at people, right, who are marshals, right, saying, right, it's okay to put chains on people. I'm watching lawyers make deals to see how long someone is going to suffer and be away from their family. And they think that's normal. I'm watching people, just a little while ago, we were all running the streets and you couldn't put chains on us. And then we go to, let me get your hands and feet, and we go just like this and allow us to be chained. And then I look at the kid, and right, I'm never gonna forget this. I'm looking at the dudes my age, because they separated me because I'm in the juvenile section for a little bit, right before I turned 18. I was gonna turn 18 in about 3 weeks. So I'm in the juvenile section. I'm looking at these kids like kids. They're my age, but I don't know, because I was from New York, and in New York, we experienced a lot more. I don't know what it was. I just know I didn't feel like I was on the same level with them, because like I felt more like an adult, even though we were the same. And I'm like, these grown-ups are telling kids to strip in front of them. If
that's a part of rape, you think?
Yeah, because if you did it as a father, if you put chains on your kid, and you put your kid in the basement, and you told your daughter or your son, strip in front of me, I want to make sure you ain't got no drugs on you before you get in this house, you go to jail for child abuse, and you'll be a sex offender. Your own kids. But a stranger could do this to your kid and could lock your kid up for 23 hours a day.
I don't think only locking your kid or doing it to your kid. They doing it to us.
Exactly. So then
strip.
Now, but this is the other part I saw.
How did you tell me before? They tell you to strip, open up your butt cheeks, and then open up your mouth. Right?
Yeah, I almost went to SEG for that. I told him I wasn't doing it. But that's the part of the youth, right? Because the youth in me at the time, you still got that rebellion. But getting back to the thing, the last part about the court, right? Because what you were talking about slavery, there was 2 other things that I saw that was wild at the time. I looked at the girls. They had the girls on the chain gang, right? Because they were bringing them up. They try to shoot them up real quick because they don't want the guys to be saying some crazy stuff or doing whatever, right? To them, making sexual advances or something, or saying sexual stuff, right? But I saw the girls from young to old. And I looked at it, it made me think of, you remember the Neanderthal picture where you got the Neanderthal man to like the modern man? And then like they show like the Neanderthal and then gradually he becomes like what we're supposed to be, the human. I looked at that and it's supposed to be like the progress of
the humankind.
Yeah.
Or so, like a gorilla to a man?
Yeah, like that, right? What I saw though was the opposite. I saw the human turning into an older animal. So you took this person, this youth, who had all these hopes and dreams, and then little by little you strip away that dream, right? So that they become nothing but broken old people who are violent and angry all the time, like animals. So instead of moving forward, I saw them going backwards but aging. So when we go back into the thing that you were talking about with slavery, we get shipped out the same way. We just get shipped out in a bus instead of a boat. And then the other part of that was I saw that they were making deals the same way they made deals for us when you read it in slavery times where they prancing you up and talking about how much you want for this slave. They've already paid the price. The price comes in years. They took me away and said I was so worthless that I'm going to go away for life. And then no one cared about the evidence. No one cared about what was going on in the case. And I never even had a therapist throughout my entire incarceration. You know what they told me when I got life without parole? Just get a job. You're never going home and work out.
So knowing all of this, therapists, how to get, treated. I know we take accountability of, some of our crime. We're not saying that, we none of those Charlie Angels. But I'm saying, how did you return back into society without having no bitter feelings?
Because there was something that education is a beautiful thing.
And I'm glad you said that, because I was forced. I was forced to walk around the prison with a damn dictionary. Everybody was going to the gym. I wanted to cry sometimes. I was like, I want to enjoy myself, but y'all had me walking around with a dictionary to understand the language. And my day was coming, and then we wanted to show that we are a product of who we was around.
Mm-hmm.
That prison did not break us down psychologically. In other words, it had came a university to many of us.
It did.
As I grow now, I know that it wasn't so much of a punishment. It just got me a preparation to where I'm at. You know what I'm saying? And when I saw you coming home, so when you came home, and I heard that you was coming home, I was right there at the front gate.
Mm-hmm. You were.
Right at the front gate, because I was like, alhamdulillah.
We thought it was impossible. But so when you asked me about why I don't have ill feelings, right? I'm not going to say I don't have ill feelings, because that'd be a lie, right? What I don't do, because I know what people have done. My least favorite word, if anybody knows me, is the word system, because people hide behind that, and people hide behind words like government. I'm like, it wasn't government that locked me up. It wasn't a system that locked me up. It was people, a person, and it wasn't a system that let me go. It was a person. I convinced the judge, and then I convinced some more judges, and then I convinced the pardon board. And then all of a sudden, I get the case flipped, right? I get resentenced, and then I get my time cut again, right? So I'm convincing people. I'm having a discussion with people. What I learned about with education is, and I got to give big props to two people, is Mark Aldridge and Dr. Aaron Corbett. These were two educators inside the facility. Mark Aldridge was the librarian, which when I used to work in the library, who taught me a lot of the things we're about talking about with the book. And Aaron Corbett, Dr. Aaron Corbett she's still the founder of the Second Chance Education Alliance. And they ask us in a lot of our literary works to make the person who's the villain the hero. Find something good to say about the hero. And one thing, when I started to think about that, and what doesn't give me ill feelings towards people, no matter who they are, right? Or like, I don't really hate them, right? Is that they were conditioned the same way we were conditioned. Some people were conditioned to believe that it was good to hurt people. And then some people were conditioned to allow themselves to be hurt. But both people are being taught something. If I can teach both of them the opposite, the one who's hurting not to hurt, and the other one who's hurting to defend themselves, then I believe we can be better. Because now we're both awake. So I'm looking at a world that's asleep. And then a lot of it is, there's an Islamic saying, there's an Islamic chapter that says, God swears by the invention of time, or by the declining day. He says, verily mankind is lost, except those who do 4 things. And you have to do all 4. He said, you got to believe. So you have to have a foundation of goodness. You have to work on that goodness and be good. You got to do good works. You got to be truthful, and you got to be patient. If you lack in any one of these, you are back into a state of loss. And then you look at the world. The people don't believe in anything, they lost. The people don't do good things, you're already lost. If you're not truthful and you're a liar, you're lost. You don't believe in nothing, you can't see nothing, you can't even see the truth. You know what's the funny thing about a liar? A liar hates a liar. But you're a liar. And then the last one, if you're not patient, everything falls apart. You're just going to run into a brick wall. This is one of the things that helped me see with people, because it makes me kind of like empathize with them. Because at one time I was in that state. Maybe not as bad, which allowed me to get out of it a little bit, but I was in that state. And I'm looking at everyone else, I'm saying, you guys are in that state, and we just got to be educated, man.
So let's get to it. So now you're home. You mentioned you went through the script program.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned you graduated.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned through the script, you got an employment that you're still there now.
Mm-hmm.
Then, through the grace of Allah, you created a book.
Yeah, Beyond Survival. So
let's get into that a little bit. Like, I want to get into the description of the front cover. Mm-hmm. What made you want to create a workbook like that, and what drove you to do such? So,
when I started writing, everybody for years, and it's coming still, right? It was my autobiography. Because, a lot of people are shocked that, I came home the way I did. I had a less than 1% chance of coming home.
And we all know that.
Yeah, so.
And one thing we did, we all used to pray together, man.
Yeah.
And all our prayers, it just came to fruition, man, because mostly all of us home, except the brother Muhammad. Yeah. And inshallah, maybe.
Inshallah, we'll get him home.
Yeah.
So, when I'm writing my autobiography, before that, I started my little LLC, which is a small consulting company called Impact Horizons. And what I do is, what separates me from any other consulting company is that I use theater workshops to relive some of the stuff that we have been accustomed to, right? And the reason I do that, so I'll have a scene play from beginning to end. and then you see the outcome. And then after that, I play it again, but this time I ask the audience or people to say, stop it. So if you're doing it by yourself, you have to stop it yourself. And then ask yourself what you could have done differently or what you believe could have been done differently so that there's a different result. And then that's how we start to, create different scenarios and start to empower ourselves and not let our past become our future. This current climate, the way politics are today, was taking away a lot of funding from nonprofits. So a lot of people couldn't afford my workshops. They love the work I do, but like, I can't afford it, right? So I said, okay, let me modify it. I'm writing my autobiography. The people need help. I said, let me do a little bit of both. So I put a little bit of part of my story, right? So as a guide and as courage so that other people could be able to tell their story. If I'm able to tell my story, right, I will never ask somebody to do something that I wouldn't do myself. So if I'm asking you to tell your story, know that I'm telling my story too. And then I walk them with it. So we start off with the trauma. Then little by little, we start working towards different outcomes, empowerment, the state of becoming, letting people know you're not your past and you're not a finished product yet. You're becoming something. What you become is up to you. So then, hopefully until the end, it becomes, the leader, right? So that you no longer allowing other people to tell you what it is that they believe you are. We're not killers. We're not murderers. We're not thieves. We're not crooks. We're not has-beens. We're not losers, right? And then you'll know that because you walk yourself out of the darkness, but you don't do it alone.
They consider that in school label theory.
Yeah.
That you associate that and what somebody else think and believe that you are, you come to, try to believe that that's who you are.
And I touch on it in the book. So in the book is part, part experience, part theoretical practices from a lot of the major psychologists and psychiatrists, applied theater and informed theater, which allows people to recreate the scenes and take it from the beginning to end, right? And the reason for this cover, everybody talks to me about this cover.
Okay.
So if you look at the bottom of the screen, you have a man and he's walking somewhere. He's walking to the light, but you really can't see where he's walking to. That's how we walk. We walk through the darkness, but we don't know where we're going, but we know we're walking away from the darkness. I believe, part of knowing where you need to be is first understanding where you don't want to be. And we don't want to be in that darkness, so we just start walking, right? And then you see the crows around them. And the reason I use crows instead of any other bird was because crows are specific. And a flock of crows is called the murder of crows. So you have people who want to see you die. And they're always pecking at you, and they pick at you all the time, right? And then they flock around, right? And then you steady the course, but you don't do it alone. There's a thing inside you, a fire burning inside you that you don't know what it is, that allows you to wake up and keep going. So what I believe is the phoenix. The phoenix comes and rises from the ashes of death, so that you can come up, right, and be where you need to be. So you walking with the thing that's inside you that protects you and guides you every single day. You don't know what that is, but I believe it's this, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be the bird, but it's the fire inside you, and that's what the phoenix represents. The fire inside you that light up the light in the darkness to show you what's pecking at you, and strong enough to say you're not alone and we'll keep going together.
That's tough, those crows. I know that in the Quran it says that the evil eye is real. Those are the crows to me, and some things it's like when I saw you say picking. Sometimes people, as you know, sometimes people handshakes, it does match their smiles.
Right.
And we believe that these people want to see us success, but I don't think, genuine, like authenticity, they not there with us with that.
Mm-mm.
And that's why they said that the evil eye is serious, is real. For example, like if you know the story of Joseph, his father said, don't reveal everything to your brothers.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because he already know to discern they're going to get envy.
Right.
And it's important how you share those images, because that's what it just automatically brought me back to, that it's a journey, and through that journey is a lot of distractions. To me, it's phoniness, but I think it is up to you, or of me, or individual, or how we could go and break through that darkness into that light. Everybody's challenges is different. Everybody's surviving skills is different. And then to me, that's where, I don't want to sound like a didn't, but we always got to rely on God, man, because He's going to want to be the one that pull us through. Whatever, however you look at it. I mean, for me, that eagle, I see a lot of YouTube joints on those eagles. Those cats is tough, man. Mm-hmm. And it just happened that you have it on the front cover. And thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And so, what are your hopes of that workbook? Like, what do you want people to see, and how do people could get to that?
So, everybody who see this, you can buy this on Amazon for $20. Right? And what I hope that people do is take responsibility for your own recovery.
Word.
Don't rely on everyone else. Right? And this is something that was told to me one time. Right? So those words right there came from somebody who got this book. And they said, you know what you're doing? I said, yeah, I'm helping others. They said, but it's more than that. Right? And it was like, you're making people responsible for their own recovery. So there's no more, you don't have to be afraid, because no one else needs to know what your story is, because you write it down yourself. I give you the guides from the beginning of the book on how to use it. You do your own personal check-ins. You write your own journals. You talk within yourself. You record yourself. You have this conversation with yourself. You don't need to bring it out to the public at all. It could be you and yourself. If you choose to bring other people in there are group exercises as well. But it's affordable. It's informative. There's also my email address if you guys need to reach me. I'm on Facebook. Look at Norman Gaines. You question me, whatever it is that you need help in, just message me there, either in my email or on Facebook or Instagram. And I promise you I will try to get back to you as soon as possible, or pick a few of the questions so that we all can relate.
And this is what we do at Urban Echoes. When we keep our ears to the streets, we try to show the community that we not about getting a pat on our back. Guys who went through challenges in life, paid the consequences, and it's not like those consequences was over when you got released. When we came home from prison, we still was dealing with the consequences out here. It's like we still locked down. But for us to come together, because they say in unity there's strength, diversity there's knowledge, but in separation, what the Jim Crow Act is trying to do, there's an attempt to be conquered but eventually destroyed. We have to know to bring self-awareness to our populations. So, you know what I'm saying? We be like the Harriet Tubman type. That's all I want to see, man. I don't want to be this and that person. I just want to see, instead of me giving my brother the crooked eye. I'm like, yo, let's go. Let's do it together. And that's it. And I thank you for coming, man.
I thank you for
I
having me.
appreciate you.
I appreciate you,
Thank
brother.
you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
All right, cool.